Hey, what up, YouTube? Um, over the past 3 months, I've been doing a job as a food service associate at my local hospital. Just another story time, I guess. Just want to talk about it. Um, See if anybody else can relate with like work struggles and just crap from work, man. It really is. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about it and like explain it all, the whole thing from beginning to end. Um, so first off, obviously I saw it was obviously I applied and all that fun stuff. When I went in for the interview, they have a weird, it's like a three-part interview. Um, First off, you interview with one of their HR people. They just want to see, like, make sure you know what you're getting into, kind of thing. For the food service associate, I later figured out that there's like, was it like 28 different jobs that fall under that category. So everybody in that kitchen had the food service associate title, but we were all doing crazy different things, all making the same money, and um, basically nothing, just doing this like all these different things under the same title. And she said, "Well, when you get this job, you could literally be thrown into anything. You could be anything from like cleaning pots and pans to actually like serving the food and like putting it all on a plate and giving it to them. Um, you could be in charge of trash, cardboard. I mean, she said it went like everywhere. The only thing you didn't really get to do was actually go up to the patients' rooms because that was a different job. You didn't get to interact with the patients, but you did like all you could do pretty much everything else. So she thought I was cool for it. Um, then I had to sit down with the there's later on I learned there's like food service associates, us. There's my boss, who was in charge of just all the people, and then there was her boss, and he was in charge of multiple different facilities and everything food related. He was really high up in the chain. I had an interview with him, and it was nothing crazy. He just wanted to, why'd you want to apply to a hospital setting? Why didn't you apply to a Burger King kind of thing? Um, and he thought I was cool for it. So then I sat down with they have a peer interview for the third part, and you just sit down with somebody who's in the food department, and they just talk about you and see if they think you would fit in with everybody. And I interviewed with one of the supervisors, and he thought I was good for it. So do all that fun stuff, sign the paperwork, and in May of 2018, uh, on the 29th, I started working there. And it was like a week of training. It was nothing crazy, but pretty much what I did was I got there at 7:30. Um, for From 7:30 to like 8:45, you did anything from for me I worked in the dish room. So there was this big long machine, and I would either take the stuff off the machine and put it on this like big wall behind me of where all this stuff goes. Um, I could put things on the machine, so you took a dirty tray, you pulled like the utensils and the cups and the plates, the good stuff, and you put it on the machine. Or there was the pots and pans station, so they would have all these. If the cooks just got done making a spaghetti, they would hand you the pot, and you would brush it out and clean it. Nothing. It was nothing. It never was anything crazy. The work itself was never a problem, in my opinion. It was. I'll get into that. It was the people that really messed it all up for me. So we did that from 8:45 to 9:15. We took a little breakfast break. From 9:15 to 11, we did. That's when all the food carts were brought down, and I was considered a number 9, and there was another guy who did 10. We basically did the same thing, just flipped. He brought down the carts in the morning, and I brought them down after lunch. He did breakfast, I did lunch. So he would bring down these food carts from all the different floors in the hospital that had all the dirty trays, and I would either do one of those stations. I'd put them on the machine, I would take them off the machine, or I would do pots and pans for an hour and 45 minutes. Nothing crazy. From 11 to 11:30, we had our lunch break, and after that, that's when I switched over to the carts. So I did. There's like overflow carts, is what they're called. So when the main carts aren't up there, there's like little carts that they'd put. So in case, let's say one of the patients, the carts are only up there for an hour. So if one of the patients wanted more than an hour, the cart would come down and their tray would still be up there. So they would put this in a soiled utility closet. So it would go in there. Excuse me. And then that's where I would pick those up. After I got done picking those up, I had to do like basement of the hospital. I had to do the trash and cardboard. Basically, you just took these big carts, you took them all the way down. You had to get in an elevator, go up one floor, and you took them down this really long hallway. And you, for the trash, you just put it in a machine, and it lifted it up and took the trash. And for the cardboard, you had to actually physically put the cardboard in a big compactor. Again, nothing crazy. At trying to remember here. At 1:15 is when I went up to all the floors. So you went, like, different elevators took you to different floors. So, like, I did one elevator, I would do the first, second, third, and fourth floor. One of them I just did the third floor, and the other one I did second, third, and fourth floor. So nothing, but that took like it takes like 2 hours. And at 3 o'clock, that's when typically everybody else leaves. So I was usually by myself from 3 to 4, and at 4 is when I got done. At 3 to 4, I just did either trash or cardboard if it needed to go out, stayed in the dish room and cleaned up. Again, nothing crazy. The work itself was not the problem. All the drama comes from a few things. First off, there was one lady. She's probably the epitome. Most of the people in there don't give a crap. They're just there for a paycheck, so they don't give a crap whose feet they step on, kind of thing. They don't care if they piss off everybody in the dish room, everybody on the whole food services. They don't give a crap. So I soon learned that there's like 1 or 2 people that actually like were cool. Everybody else could give 2 craps. I mean, there'd be times where I'm like pushing the trash cart, and like one lady was just standing in my way, like on purpose. I asked her to move, and she's like, "I'm reading the paper here," like blocking the hallway. Like they don't care. They really don't care about you. But there was one lady in the dish room. That's where I worked every single day for about, actually almost like 4 months. It was May to September, so 4 months. There was one lady in the dish room. I'm gonna call her Patty. Again, no real names here. These are all fake names. She worked. I was full time. She was full time. So basically, every single day I worked, she worked. She was a mess, to put it lightly. Like I said, from those times I was in the dish room, that's all we were required to do. Was like, if I was on the pot station for basically like 2 hours, I would take the pots, clean them off, put them on the machine, and then they're clean. The pot would be clean, and she would want it to get run through again just for no apparent reason sometimes. So that would take up a lot of time. Sometimes you have this big pile of pots and pans with like burnt stuff on them. So it took the full 2 hours. It really did. And she would just be like, "No, let's send it back through. Just whatever. Who cares?" And I was like, "Okay." But just really it took a lot of time. And the problem we came up with was she wanted to do all these extra things that we weren't required to do. And I get that's a good thing sometimes, but there was a certain point where we were, one of the walls, and they're not like metal walls either, they're like just regular walls. She had us with steel wool scrubbing these walls, and like there's a certain point I'm like, this isn't in my job description. Like this, nobody in this whole hospital, my boss, her boss, nobody ever said I had to scrub the walls. Like it got a little ridiculous. She had us take the panels off the sides of the machine and clean those off, and she had us put them through the machine itself. I mean, there's some things I'm like, during my training, during everything, nobody said we had to do these things. We had to clean the fans with her. Like, she just wanted us to do, and she was there for like 3 years, I think, but she's still a food service associate. She's not like a higher position than me or anything. She's just been there longer, and that's just what she does. I mean, there'd be times where it'd be 11 o'clock, we're about ready to go to lunch, and she would just say, she would like the pots, there's like a wall of pots and pans that are clean, and she would go over and just start throwing them on the machine again for no apparent reason. And then, of course, we're the ones who have to pull them off and put them back over. She'd be like, these could use another rinse, and so it would be like from 11 to 11:30 is our lunch, and sometimes we wouldn't get lunch. or we would go. It'd be like 11:20, and we're going on lunch because she just decides to do things. There'd be all these like these little pots. They'd be like, okay, they're all clean, and she would go over and just start inspecting them, and she's like, I don't think this one's clean, so let's take all 20 of these pots and put them on the machine to clean them. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This is just wasting time now. So she, most days, there was like one day out of every 2 weeks that she wasn't there, and those were like the best days ever, because we got all the work done that we were required to do. No hassle, no nothing, and we left. I mean, it was... And again, yes, doing extra work is fine, and that's a good thing. However, when you're pulling pieces of the machine off just to wash them, when literally nobody, the person who trained me, my supervisors, my boss, like none of them has ever said like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. She's the only one in the whole kitchen out of like 30 people that does that. And of course, rather than her just doing it herself, she brings everybody down with her. Everybody has to start pulling pieces off the machine to clean it, and it was a lot. She'd yell at you constantly, for just no apparent reason. I'll get into the carts portion of it with her, but that's just the dish room portion. She just... It was a mess. See, we'd miss lunch some days because of her. She would just work us to death. And of course she was supposed to get off at like 3, and of course most days she was there till like 3:34 just because she wanted to stay extra and like yell at everybody. And of course from like 3 to 4 was supposed to be my time alone, but of course that never happened because she would stay late sometimes and like yell at me to clean things, and like she wasn't my boss, she wasn't a supervisor, she was nothing. So she would just make it constantly annoying. You'd have, like I said, for the 2 hours, like I typically got on the pots and pans station. For 2 hours, I would just clean the pots and pans, and she would constantly like stop what she was doing, slow down everything else to come over and like yell at me on like, why aren't you doing these faster when you're on the pots and pans? You're supposed to be fast. I'm like, I'd still have like an hour left, and I'm like, in the middle of cleaning them, and she'd be like, why aren't you done yet? And I'm like, she just constantly made it very frustrating. Like I said, the work itself, even like just getting in there and cleaning up burnt cheese off a pan, like that was never even a problem for me. I was fine with that. It was her constantly yelling, and she was a hypocrite too, because like for the pots and pans, there was like a big sink next to it. We had like a hose to clean it with, and then there was a sink for like eggs, because the protein usually it makes it stick to like pots and pans. So for everybody else, it was cool to put those pots and pans in like this hot soapy water and just leave them there while you went to breakfast or lunch, and then come back and do them. For me, no. She constantly yelled at me so that I not only had to get done all the pots and pans, but I could not leave a single one. If there was a big pile of eggs that was stuck to the pan, nope. Everybody else, it was cool if they put them in the hot soapy water to let that sort of break down. For me, no. I had to sit there and scrub until I got done. It was ridiculous. It really was. Anyway, so that's she really made it a problem for me. And then for the carts situation, I love the carts, because basically from 11 to like 3, my boss just said, you know what, go for it. I was unsupervised, just got to walk the hospital and do my job. Never any downtime, but still, it was fun just to do it at your own pace. The problem came with, for the carts portion, is, so say if at 12 o'clock they bring the cart up to the first floor. They have and there's a time on the cart. They have 1 hour. The nurses and the CNAs and all those people, they have 1 hour to give the food out, let the people eat it, and then make sure that dirty tray is is in the cart. So all I have to do, so if at 12 o'clock it gets brought up, they'll write 12 on it, and then they'll write 1 for pickup. So at 1 o'clock I'll come up, they've had their hour, and I take the cart down to the dish room. Good in theory. However, there's all those food service associates, and then there's something called nutritional care assistants. They're the ones that actually have to know, like, oh, this person is diabetic, so like these are things they can't have or whatever, like those sort of things. They didn't give a crap. So there would be, like I said, everybody leaves at 3. So there's typically like 4 or 5 people in the dish room, and after 3, it's just me. So they wouldn't give a crap if they got a cart up on a floor, which they start at like 11. So I have no idea how it takes them like 3 or 4 hours to get through. But that's another story, I guess. Yeah, they'd get these carts up at like 2:30, so they wouldn't be ready till 3:30. So at 3:30, I'd have to go up, get a cart. I'd have to take all the stuff off myself, put like sort it all myself, and there's still pots. I'd have to run the whole dish room myself because they don't give a crap. So that was a little frustrating too, because they don't, like I said, once they got done bringing the food out, they're done for the day. So they don't care whether they do it on time or super late. They don't give a crap. But one of the big problems came when I still don't understand how they do this. There was like a set. So like I did first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, and that's how they came up. So these nutritional care assistants, NCAs, they brought them up to the first floor, and then they went back down, got the second floors, went down and got the third floor, and so forth. So there was like a set pattern. So in the beginning, I started at the first floor. It was ready at, let's say, 2 o'clock. That one was ready. So then the second floor should be ready at like 2:15. So like as I bring it down, time's passing, I can go back up. The next one's ready. For some reason, most of the time, there's like 30-minute gaps in between floors. I have no idea how it takes you 30 minutes to go downstairs, get a cart, and bring it back up. That doesn't make sense to me. Most of the time, I'm assuming they're goofing off or something. So there would come times where I'm just standing there for 30 minutes because I can't take the carts early. So there's like me and 2 other people that do carts, like just for the whole freaking hospital. And they would typically, and I learned it from them, is they just took them early. So if the cart said, they're like, as long as it looks kind of full, you can get away with it. So like towards the end there, beginning, wherever, they don't care. If it says, oh, you can't pick this cart up till 2:30, well, it'd be like 2 o'clock, and they'd go up, see it's kind of full, and they'd just take it. They don't care. After a while of doing that, however, the nurses called down and started complaining to our bosses. So most of the time they came to me for some reason I don't understand. The guy who did it in the morning, they would call down after lunch about him, and they'd think it was me. So I get yelled at for a lot of his crap. But so I started taking them a little early too. I never did anything like 30 minutes. I only stayed 15, 10 minutes early, whatever. Complained a whole lot. I got yelled at a whole mess for that. So I said, you know what, fine. I don't care if it goes to, because that's the problem. A lot of these later carts, it would be past. There'd be some times where like 3 o'clock, everybody's left, and there's still like 4 carts on the floor that I have to do all by myself because nobody cares. I can't take them early because I get yelled at by the nurses or I get yelled at by my boss. So I was like, okay, you know what? We'll take them on time. Well, then the problem with that is there was no, like, my boss she never ever backed us up. Like, that was the one thing I wanted, was just like some support from your own people kind of thing. So I'd go up, if the cart was ready at 2:30, I'd be there at 2:30. And then some of these nurses and CNAs, they wouldn't start till 2:30 to start collecting the trays. So I was told, so if I took it at 2:30 and when it was supposed to be taken and it wasn't ready, then originally I was told, hey, that's their problem. They just put them in the overflow. It's no big deal. Then these CNAs and stuff, yeah, they started when I was supposed to take them, and it would take them 5-10 minutes to get all these trays and stuff. And so I almost essentially got yelled at for taking it on time. And that's how I described it to my boss. I'm saying, like, with this time is, I thought we were supposed to, that you give them an hour. You don't give them extra just because just because for no apparent reason. It's supposed to be an hour. We take it because then you're throwing me off. But see, nobody else was affected but me, because I'm the one who had to stay a little later. I got to come in an hour later than everybody, but I had to stay later than everybody. So nobody else was really affected by this. So yeah, how I explained it to my boss was, I said, you're giving all these nurses and stuff extra time over on top of the hour. You don't really care. I said, if I told you for no apparent reason, you could get extra money in your paychecks. You don't have to do anything. You just have to ask for extra money on your paychecks. Wouldn't you want that? And she said, yeah. I said, then why are you just letting these nurses get extra time on these carts? And she's like, oh, well, I didn't really have a good excuse for it, but so it just took. So again, the dish room had Miss Patty treat me like crap. The nurses treated me like crap when I was trying to get the cards. They made it painful. So again, it was, yeah, it sucked. You got yelled at all day long for actually doing what you're supposed to do. And the final thing was that they had was PTO, your paid time off. You didn't get that until you've been there for 3 months. So for the first 3 months, you're on like a probationary status. You can't touch your PTO for 3 months. And then after that 3 months, like 3 months worth of PTO is just yours. For me, it was like 50 hours or something. I remember it was like 50 hours or something, yeah. And just like the guy who trained me, we burned through it all, like right then and there. So they handed me 50 hours worth of PTO. And essentially, I was like, okay, dish room treats me like crap. The nurses treat me like crap when I'm doing cards. Why am I still doing this? So I took essentially like 2 weeks worth off using my PTO, and then like over this time off, I just sort of realized, like, do I really want to go back? So I ended up just took the 2 weeks off, and then after that I just quit. I mean, it was just the work itself, and it even started off good, but it was just everybody complained, everybody made life hard for you. So especially Miss Patty, just very negative attitudes by everybody. So yeah, I used this like all this PTO, just kind of thought about life and thought about the job, and then never again. I left. So after about 4 months, I decided to pick up and leave it. So yeah, that's my story as a food service associate at the hospital. Let me know if you guys have had crappy jobs too. Just another story time. All right, see you guys.